Hi, welcome to the Mindset. I'm Christopher Feldner, training architect with Ukeru, and today we have, for the second time in a row, an in-person guest, which is nice because a lot of times I'm talking to someone on the screen, which is good. We still have good conversations, but having someone in person, it just has a different feel. You don't have to worry about if the internet glitches or anything like that. If we glitch in person, it's our fault, right? So with me, I have a special guest. If you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Hello, my name is Milo Levine, and I am the music therapist at Grafton Integrated Health Network. Their Berryville location, so psychiatric residential treatment facility for youth.
So for those who are unfamiliar, and I feel like even myself, like I have a very bare bones knowledge, what exactly is music therapy?
So music therapy uh, oftentimes gets grouped in with music educators.
Hmm.
The biggest difference is people are often more familiar with music teachers, where
Mm-hmm.
their goal is more performance based. So, how well can you play this instrument? How can I help you reach your highest potential in music?
Mm-hmm.
A music therapist is a little bit different, where music therapy is the use of music by a licensed music therapist to reach non-musical goals.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than trying to get you to be the best clarinet player in the world, we're there to help you be the best version of yourself. So help you use music to help you work on impulse control, interpersonal relationships, processing trauma. Um, the clinical applications are really endless. I've worked in hospice with pain management,
Mm.
and now in a psychiatric facility on those things I mentioned, impulse control and
Gotcha.
stuff like that.
So before we get further into it, like what is your personal musical background? Like start at the beginning. What even got you on this path?
Yeah, so great question. I was very fortunate to have an opportunity when I was in late elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
Shepherd University was having a free program where their music education students were teaching piano to people in the community, and they were looking for volunteers. And after that class was done, I continued piano lessons, but then my sisters decided to take piano lessons too.
Mm.
So it wasn't quite as cool. So, for middle school Milo. So I actually tried doing the jazz band, and they of course had five drummers. So they were like, "We're gonna put you on bass." So I started playing upright bass and electric bass, and then continued through high school playing in jazz ensembles
Mm-hmm.
and show choir bands and all that stuff, and some rock bands that were outside of school. And then when it came time to look at colleges, I uh, was really interested in psychology, but loved music a lot, and music therapy was kind of the best of both worlds. So when I got to uh, Western University, I was able to explore psychology and music, while also being in multiple bands in the community
Mm-hmm.
and um, touring with the WU Old Time and Bluegrass Band, which was wonderful, and really just uh, getting exposed to so many different genres and awesome opportunities.
Gotcha. So with bass, you said you played upright bass, you played electric bass. Which do you prefer?
Um, it depends. I really depends on the genre. If I'm
Yeah.
playing like bluegrass or jazz, upright is way more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess it also depends on the circumstances. If I have to go anywhere, the electric bass is significantly
Right.
easier to haul around. So it kind of interchangeable.
It's funny. Sometimes on the road, we are we're training someplace close to a university, and I've seen like the tiniest person with this huge strapped on upright bass on their back, which is bigger than they are, trying to like walk down the street with it.
Yep.
So
And then they unlock their two-door Honda Civic or
exactly,
something.
exactly. Put on top of their smart car and
Yeah.
take off. So Why music therapy?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned I was very interested in psychology,
Hmm.
and I actually initially declared as a psychology major. Um, the music therapy department at WVU was actually just getting off the ground. So I think my class was the first one to go through the program when it was accredited at the start to the end.
Hmm.
So it was new. The biggest thing is I'd been playing with bands, recording, playing at cafes, just whatever I could to play music in the community, and I really
Hmm.
had enjoyed it. Um, there was an aspect of the starving artist that I realized that it can be very tough living, constantly trying to book gigs, traveling, all
Hmm.
that stuff. um, but fortunately, music therapy gave me the opportunity to continue to share and create and use music for healing within the community, and also tie in my love for psychology. So
Hmm.
there's curriculum that kind of meets both of those. So it was kind of a perfect storm of being able to combine those two things.
Gotcha. You know, talking about that, it made me think of, when I was younger, there would be some trial where, I don't know, these teens committed a crime and they'd be like, the music made them do it. It was that metal music or hip hop music or whatever it was. Like, what do you see as the key links between music and like the psyche? Like, why is it that those two seem to go well together a lot of times?
Yeah, well, I think that music can say
Hmm.
um, and make us feel things that sometimes words can't.
Hmm.
So, especially like with the population I work with now at Grafton, a lot of these kiddos are on the spectrum,
Hmm.
have a wide variety of communication styles,
Hmm.
verbal skills, receptive communication skills. But one thing that I've noticed, every single kid there has some connection in some way. Even if they say they don't like music, it could be a soundtrack. Music has the power without words, if it's just an instrumental, to make you feel a certain way. And
Hmm.
oftentimes that can be incredibly validating. That's one of the big things we talk about now. I'm actually in my master's in clinical mental health counseling. And one of the biggest things is just sitting back, validating, holding space.
Hmm.
And that's something that music does wonderfully. If you've heard the song before, you know what to expect. I love Sentimental Mood, In a Sentimental Mood, which is a jazz piece that Coltrane did. And if I'm in any type of headspace, I know I can go to that song. It'll calm me down. It'll help me think, and that's the power of music that music therapy can use, and a music therapist can use when they're working with their client, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, what are, the population you work with? There's a wide variety of cognition, diagnoses, past histories, and everything else. What are some of the successes and challenges of working with a psych treatment population?
Yeah, it was a big change
Hmm.
from hospice. With hospice, it was a lot of reminiscence, legacy projects, um, non-pharmacological pain management,
Hmm.
stuff like that. But I knew I needed a change up.
Hmm.
And also, I was looking closer to home, and this opportunity um, came up, and I interviewed, and I went to the campus, and um, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, honestly. To a certain extent, I did, and there was great training as far as what to expect,
Hmm.
and a realistic view of what goes on campus. But when I got to campus, It had been probably 7 years or so since they had
Hmm.
had their last music therapist.
Yeah.
So the space was pretty much just a pile of instruments in the middle of the room. And one of the good things about that was I was able to build a music therapy program back up, using a trauma informed approach, using an approach that was informed by a couple months of me being in the dorms with the students while the room was getting, while the music therapy space was getting painted and all this stuff. And I was able to take my guitar into the residential side of things and really get to know what the students' interests were,
Hmm.
what trauma informed looked in that space, um, being mindful of triggers. And with that, I will say one of the biggest challenges is that none of these clients are the same.
Yeah.
uh, there's so many different personalities, interests, stuff like that, that when you're leading 4 to 6 group sessions a day, you really have to be mindful of creating programming that's going to be engaging and interesting to all of the kids.
Hmm.
One of the things that really helped with that was I actually made a rap studio in the basement. So a lot of these kids that were too cool for school or something like that, the
Hmm.
second they realized they could make beats and express themselves in a way that was familiar with them,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of those walls came down, and the kids have been making some beautiful and authentic music.
So when they go and they make the music and they record it, do they have a chance to share that anywhere or to anyone?
Yeah. So since it's in a therapeutic space, it's all confidential if they want
Hmm.
it to be. So um, I have a copy of it and it doesn't go anywhere. But what I find is a lot of these kids it's something that they can be incredibly proud of. It's a win for them and they do want to share it. So oftentimes what I'll do is, with the client's permission, I'll share it with their case manager who
Hmm.
can pass it along to their family, their DSS worker. I'll send it to a teacher or residential staff if they, with their permission.
Hmm.
So there are opportunities. We actually just had a talent show,
Mm.
and one of our clients' uh, beats that he made was played through the PA system, and then we had other individuals in their dorm play drums and guitar and piano on top of that, and in a performance that was pretty cool.
Hmm. What have been some of the family reactions when they receive that?
I think it's really cool because whether it's the family or the staff, oftentimes a lot of these kids have um, very unique needs,
Hmm.
and oftentimes their diagnosis um, can somewhat def- it can be a label that is the first thing you see, whether
Yeah.
you're reading their chart or whatever, and it humanizes them as an individual. I've gotten wonderful wonderful reactions. I had one of the ABA staff
Hmm.
listen to one of her clients songs and started getting tears because it was about um, loss
Hmm.
and processing past traumas, but
Hmm.
also um, the chorus had a line that was, um, we can make the world so different with the help of just one friend. Um, and that was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So, uh, gotten very positive responses from any music that they've made.
Hmm. That's very cool. I mean, even before you had the room set up for you for the program, when you first started taking your guitar into the dorms, What were some of the reactions you got?
Excitement, which is cool. Definitely initially, uh, it took some time to not only explain to the clients what music therapy was, but a lot of
Hmm.
the staff had never worked with a music therapist before. So it was a lot of advocacy, uh, teaching and explaining what I do. I went to two in services for the residential staff, gave them a little overview of what I did. Same for the clinical department,
Hmm.
but it was a lot of excitement. But definitely, it's one of those newer fields that it took some education.
Yeah. So what are some with your programming? What's some of the plans and goals that you have for the campus, for the individuals you're serving?
Yeah. Well, especially recently, I'm really trying to uh, increase the campus wide events.
Hmm.
That's something that I'm trying to do at least once a month. 2 months ago, we had my buddy Ian Finch, actually from right here in Martinsburg. He is a wonderful musician. He does bluegrass, Americana rock.
Hmm.
He came in and he brought his mandolin and he taught the kids about tarantellas and played Italian music and Irish jigs and all this stuff, really to help expose them to things culturally that they may not have had in the past. Before,
Hmm.
between the last music therapist and myself, it seems like they haven't had as many assemblies academically, just because of the exceptional needs. Having that many kids in one space is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So with thinking about stuff like that, with this last one, last month we had a pianist come out, one of our practicum students, music therapy practicum students from Shenandoah University. And we split it up into two 30-minute assemblies to help it be more palatable to the clients
Hmm.
and also help with engagement, just all that type of stuff. She actually played video game and film scores and had the kids guessing, and it was wonderful. Everybody was just locked in. And this past week on Wednesday, they had their spring break, and our campus wide event, which all of the students residentially came over and watched, was a talent show.
Hmm.
So one of the things with that is I wanted to um, push inclusivity as far as anyone who wants to be a part can be a part. And I also tasked them with, rather than having a bunch of individual performances, which can turn into an hour and a half or two, I learned that the hard way. Um, I challenged them to work collaboratively.
Hmm.
So one of the kids really is proud of his collection of patches from fire departments and different things from where he's from. He was like, I think for my talent, I want to show this. So we introduced him and his patches, and then while the rest of his residential dorm rocked out to the song they had chose, he walked around in front of the stages or in front of the stands and showed his patches. And so I think that more campus wide events
Hmm.
for sure, and bringing in the community for things like that are is high on my priority list. I also think that another thing that I'm really working towards is more programming over the weekend. So I
Hmm.
work every other Saturday, and about a month ago we started something new, which is a songwriting club.
Hmm.
So I set up the upstairs of the music room after we received a training about individuals who are RAD, so reactive attachment disorder. They thrive in uncluttered, um, just clean environments. So I cleaned everything off the shelves, made it a really inviting space that's conducive to creativity and mindfulness. And I every single dorm is scheduled for some part of that Saturday, and they come down and they're welcome to write songs. I also encourage, if that's not something that really interests them, just getting them out of the dorm and getting them getting that mindfulness is what's most important to me. So I also will encourage them to draw or write, uh, poetic prose, poetry, whatever
Mm-hmm.
floats their boat. But that's another thing I'm really excited to see where that takes us.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Very cool. I was thinking about your program, especially having the pleasure to walk through it recently and see it all set up and the different instruments. And implicitly, it made me think of probably the last time I played in North Carolina. There, before the festival started, we had the afternoon, so we walked around a lot. And the local museum was having an instrument petting zoo. I was like, what is that? And it was
That's
free
super
to the
cool.
public. So we walked in, and there was all of these tables, the entire area around it, and they all had different types of instruments, and you could just go play them. Like, obviously, this was pre-COVID,
Yeah.
right? So they would clean off the mouthpieces and stuff between each. So they had like several different horns, including like a taragato, I think it's called, like the long piece that kind of sits on the floor.
Yeah.
Um, Trumpets, saxophones. They had basses of all kind. They had violins, violas, like drums. It just like I enjoyed going around messing with them,
Yeah.
But then I was seeing like the families with their young kids and the ones that they would connect with, and I was thinking, man, what a fantastic opportunity for kids. You know, if something like that, if I had experienced something like that younger, I think I would have started getting into music way sooner than I did,
Yeah.
instead of just being an angry teenager and discovering hardcore metal, and spending so much time on that. So thinking about your space that you have set up, a new client that lives there comes in, there's all these different instruments. How do you help them find a path there? Or what's that look like?
Yeah. That's a very interesting point. And it kind of relates to your experience with that museum,
Mm-hmm.
where I want to make music accessible
Mm-hmm.
to these clients. Uh, First and foremost, in the music room, we have one principal rule that obviously kind of encompasses um, a lot of different boundaries and stuff within the music room, and that's
Mm-hmm.
respect, for ourselves, others, instruments, thoughts, ideas. And with that, one of my clients, I'm actually working on interpersonal skills and um, boundaries and consent. So I really encourage him to experience as many instruments that we have in the music room as possible. The one thing is that before he goes and picks up a new one, just taking a moment and asking for permission. Is it right if I touch this one?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, can I turn this tuning peg? Stuff like that. That's uh, intentional and therapeutic. Once they actually have the instrument that they want, uh, as I said, it's my job to make it accessible. So we actually just recently got a donation of a 3/4 size cello,
Mm-hmm.
which is wonderful. So that's gotten a lot of interest from the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, let's say they want to do that, they want to play that. I double check it's tuned up. One of the things I learned from an exchange in Spain, without getting too wordy, I did a music therapy exchange in Spain, and there was a open tuned orchestra of all different people with various um, complex needs
Mm-hmm.
and fine motor and gross motor skills. And I was like, that's amazing. So I open tune the guitars, I open tune the cello, and it's cool because they'll be mindful. There'll be a kid that the staff is like, oh my gosh, you talked for 2.5 hours and we got nowhere. And I don't know how to get them to regulate. And that same kid walks in, can I try playing cello? He's a little hyped up, excited, ready to get to music. And then 5 minutes later, total silence, sitting there just playing softly, slowly. I check in every few minutes to see where they are, whether they're nervous, happy, sad, relaxed. And he just said, I feel very calm. And then after he stopped playing, we had like 30 seconds of silence to just process it. So, and that's just the cello,
Cello is an awesome instrument.
Yeah. So really just getting them on whatever instrument they gravitate towards, whether that's drums, guitar, cello, and making it accessible for them is really important.
It's apparent hearing you describe everything here. And also when we talked before in your room, when you went through training, you went through Kiru, and you learned about our philosophy of comfort versus control. Like, how do you see comfort versus control play out in the work that you do?
Yeah, I think the music room is just a small part of the greater system that is our Berryville facility. And the philosophy of comfort versus control, for me, starts with training and is something that needs to be continued on a personal level. It's something that you have to get into your mind. I'm not here to power struggle. I'm not here to, especially if a client is dysregulated, that's not the time to try changing their whole world perspective or teach. So the primary thing that I always keep in my mind, especially for Mukera training, is that comfort versus control. I have a dysregulated client. I mentioned they've been talking for 2.5 hours. I don't know what to do. And I walk in and I can say, hey, do you remember what we were talking in the music room last week? I really want to understand where you're coming from and what you're saying. But while we're feeling upset, sometimes we don't express that the best way. Can we take 3 to 5 minutes? And, same kid did some deep breaths, calmed down, did their residential session, and was able to re-engage in that conversation from a better place. And that's in a residential setting, in the residential setting where they sleep and eat. And in the music room, it's much the same thing. I'm starting a session and somebody is dysregulated. They just start crying, bawling. And it's just, stopping the commotion, stopping the music, maybe playing something supportive on guitar, just light finger picked, and processing with that client, and not only that client, but their peers. So I've had some beautiful moments where peers start to comfort this client that possibly in a previous frame of thought before Ukeru or my training, it could have been a client that like immediately the second they were starting to have a tough time, academic aid or someone would come in, so move them out of the session, rather than holding space for those times and allowing the kids to process together and talk and be supportive. So it's really just a mindset of comfort over control.
I like how you threw in the mindset there.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate, you bringing music therapy back to that campus. I worked there when we had the previous one, and kids really enjoyed it, and I know it was missed. And I know I've heard a lot of staff talk about how much the kids enjoyed it and how they've enjoyed it. So I definitely appreciate everything that you do with that. Um, Now, as far as your personal music and stuff that you do, where could people find out more about that, or check out your stuff?
Well, I do have a Facebook page
Hmm.
that is Milo Levine Music. I do have some stuff on Spotify. It's a little dated from probably like I probably recorded like 5 or 6 years ago. Most of the stuff on there. I'm working on a album currently that should be dropping next year sometime. But the best place would probably be Milo Levine Music on Facebook. And then I do have a Spotify account that's Milo Levine as well. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Well, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here today.
absolutely. I really appreciate being here. And yeah, it's cool. I'm honestly, you mentioned how like they were happy to have music back
Hmm.
on campus, but I have to remind myself if I ever am having like a rough day or something, just how fortunate I am to be able to um, make a living making music and um, helping people through music
Hmm.
every day. So I'm really appreciative of that, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.